Cool. I'm going to start recording. Let me give a quick 5 minute, mini TED talk, call it, and understand what you guys are thinking, where you guys are at. So just to give a brief, cohort 2 May, I was just going through this today. On week 5, we had started React. And I was thinking of starting React this week, but we did a poll where 55% or 50% said, let's practice before we proceed. And 37 said it's decent. So I'm just basically skipping one more week. But we should avoid this too much. So the course will become really long, which I have no problems with. But, there is lack of motivation that comes if you're not quickly learning new things. So I would urge you to do a lot of practicing yourself. And if you think there are lack of assignments, let us know. Even though I think there are decent amount of assignments that we push into the repository every week. But if you feel that's not the case, that's fine. Generally, what is expected is what we're going to do today. So the thing that we're going to do manually today, try to do the same yourself during the week so that, existing topics you get comfortable with yourself. That said, if one topic feels very jarring, for example, let's say MongoDB was like, Harkirat, we can't go understand this much without practicing, then feel free to, let us know. But let's try, we don't become twice as long as cohort 2. If cohort 2 was 6, 7, I don't remember, 8 months, we don't want to do this for 1.5 years, right? So let's amp up the pace a little bit. Anyways, after React, hopefully, React is the only big bump that will come. Uske baad React to Next is easy. I don't see any immediate bumps after that. If you practice really well in the MERN stack itself, that includes, MongoDB as the database, that's fine. And, Express, React and Node.js. If you create 5-6 kiddo projects as well, as long as you're writing a lot of code yourself, the journey after that becomes easy. We are going to create one such project today, but we will not be worrying about the R. We'll not be worrying about React. We will write the front end in very basic, DOM manipulation like we have until now, HTML, CSS and JavaScript. But everything else we'll try to, practice a lot. I would urge you to write the code. It'll basically be like these are the steps we have to follow. Try to follow the steps on your side. We did this in cohort 2 in the Paytm class. It was good feedback. Everyone understood what their level is at. You were expected to know something, but if you weren't able to know that, that means you have some backlog to catch up. So that is going to be the goal for today's class specifically. This is what we're building. We're building a course selling website. You can make this very complex. For example, if you have ever looked at harkira.classics.co.in, there is actually an admin dashboard of it. If you ever go here, there's actually an admin dashboard where teachers go and upload content, add courses, remove courses, change the price of courses, things like these. So there are two parts to building a course selling application. You can make it fairly complex. For example, our CMS is fairly complex. If I show you the admin dashboard of this, it lets you do thousands of things because this CMS works with a lot of educators. Every educator has its own set of use case. So even a course selling application might feel very simple. What we're building also is not simple. I have, added a few features that we don't need. We didn't have in cohort 1, but I've added here to make it a little more complex. But let me know if it gets too complex as well. These are the steps to follow. I would hope you guys code. I code after, let's say, 5 minutes. For 5 minutes, you code, I just answer any doubts. And then after 5 minutes, I will code as well. All of this we have done. There is nothing new here other than there are 2 extra things I've added. For example, this point right here, if you add routing to Express yourself or, we'll learn as well today, that is great. And if you know what .env is, or if you learn this today, these are the 2 new things you will learn and we haven't done before. You can also build the application without using this and without using this. These are just brownie points. But the goal is we also understand 2 new things in the process. Cool. I think we should be able to do, hopefully until this point, generating the schema today. If all goes well, we should be able to complete the backend. Front end we can do tomorrow. Also do it in an offline video. I'm fine either way. We probably will do tomorrow. Let's build it end to end. Let's try to build a mildly beautiful looking UI. Cruxy backend, by which I mean, it has all the right features. There is no vulnerabilities. There is nothing obvious we're missing. Go from there. Okay, ji. 8:07. Let's start. This is how, even Super 30 is going to be. The people that we're getting on site, we're just giving them projects like these. Do it yourself. I think you will, unless you're a complete beginner, then you're going to get overwhelmed here. But if you have done all the classes until this point, then this shouldn't be too difficult. You will of course have to push a little bit in the middle. Everything else should be simple. If you are super advanced, then I don't know what you will do in this class. If you already know React, Mern, you've built a lot of projects, then what can you do? You can skip this week as well, and come back next week. Or if you want to build this, if you really want to do something, then if you're very free right now, build the same thing, but build a very fancy UI. Use v0.dev or whatever. Create Figma designs for it. Have an end-to-end application ready basically in the next 2 days. Show it to me after 2 days. I made this course selling application. I would love to see. These are very minimal features as well. You can add more features. This is like the very basic bare minimum. Without any further ado, let's kick things off. Please initialize a fresh repository locally. Create a fresh folder locally in your project. I'm going to write all of my code here only. But you can create a fresh folder in your machine. mkdir week 9 Coursera or whatever you want to call it. You can call your app whatever you want. Let's say you call it Coursera. So create a few new folder in your machine. Go into that folder in your machine and open that folder in Visual Studio Code. Open this folder in Visual Studio Code. You have an empty folder opened here. Hoping that is straightforward. Take 10 seconds. Then we will start to create our projects. If you have any questions related to the class, if you are stuck at any point, I'm looking at Q&A. How to store images in Mongo, like course images? That is a great question. And the answer is you don't store images in Mongo. You never store images in a database. You store images someplace else, specifically this thing called object stores. You store the URL of the image in the database. So for today, we will just expect the user to give us a URL. It is a great feature to add. There's a video I have on YouTube creating full SaaS application in 6 hours. I have covered this over there if you want to understand how image uploads work on an object store. Today we don't have to do that. To recap, we are building this. These are all the steps. These are also present on cohort 3. So github.com/100x steps cohort 3/week-8 course selling project. So you can look at all of these steps locally, or if you want to, look at the screen, I have them on the screen as well. Problem to creating database. What's the problem in creating a database? We discussed this last week, right? MongoDB, you can easily create one, get one for free. Should I follow along if beginner? You should. Please follow along if beginner. This is for beginner. This is like the whole point of this is if you are a beginner, you do it yourself. And advanced people, this is like a 5-minute thing to build. Cool. I don't see any specific questions. So someone asked why backend first. You should always build the backend first. You don't know, any application that you're building, start with the most complex thing. If you're building ChatGPT, you will first build the models, then build the backend, then build the front end. How do you initialize an empty JavaScript project? npm init-y. As soon as I do that, it creates one for me. It also has a very nice description that it created by default. It picked all of this description from readme.md for me and put it over here. For you, it should be empty. Doesn't matter. What is the command I ran? npm init-y to initialize a package.json, this thing right here. After this is done, what is the next step? You initialize a index.js file. This will be our entry point file. Whenever you start your application, the way you will start it is you will run node index.js. So the first goal today is to create a very basic structure. We will create it in index.js. Eventually, of course, we will introduce more files. If you remember in the database class, we did Mongo, like a database.javascript file and middleware.js file. So we will introduce more files. For now, index.js is good enough. Add express JSON web token as dependency. There should actually be a third dependency here called mongoose, if you remember, which lets us connect to the database. So for now, I can think of only 3 dependencies. This might increase in the future. We will see. So what are the commands to run? npm install express, mongoose, and JSON web token. These are the 3 external dependencies that you need for a basic full stack app. And we will see if we need more eventually. Can you create the 4th point? Can you try to write the skeleton for a user to log in, a user to sign up, and a user to purchase a course? You don't have to create any fancy, logic. Just create route handlers for now. Hopefully we understand what are route handlers. create 3 route handlers, maybe 4. A place where user comes and logs in, a place where user comes and signs up, purchases a course, sees the purchased courses, and sees all courses. 5 endpoints we need for the user. Here, actually, I would like to introduce routing. This very complex point that I've written over here, let me introduce that because it will make your life a little easier. If we don't use routing, then we will have a very big index.js file. So let me show you both the approaches, one with routing, one without routing, and then we will see which approach is slightly cleaner. So try it out yourself, with or without routing, doesn't matter. Take 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes, and then I will code also. I will show you both the approaches. One approach is slightly better. I will keep pushing the code from time to time. So if you feel like you're lost, if you're behind, you can always, see the reference from GitHub. All right. The current code, let me push to GitHub until then. So for those of you who weren't able to code step 1 and step 2, you can always go to GitHub, pull the changes. I've pushed my current repository over here, pull this repository and run npm install. You will be at the same point that I am. Hopefully that's easy enough. Cool. 2 more minutes, then we will start. What do you have to do? In index.js, try to write a lot of code. Please disable AI. Try to write a lot of code yourself. Well, Kirat, I cannot. I have not learned it enough. What are we supposed to do? Express npm.js. We know Express is an npm module. I can always go here and see after you have installed Express, how do you create routes in Express? Keep going. Nothing I can find over here, Harkirat. So where can I find it? expressjs.com most probably. I can go to the official docs, click on getting started, hello world. Something is hopefully over here. It gives me the basic code to introduce one route, this route right here. We have to, of course, write 5 routes today. So can you just copy the whole code and then add the 5 routes, or even better, code it yourself? That's the easiest path to create a simple Express application locally. Every Express application starts the same, looks the same, and entry point you will always find in Express at the top. Cool. Let me paste this in chat if you want to follow along from here. One more minute, then I will code it as well. This is the step that we're on. All right. I will do a poll after this if you feel I'm going really fast. But what do you have to do? Const express equal to require express, the external dependency. Const app equal to express, create an instance of an express HTTP server. At the end, you will have app.listen on some port, let's say 3000. And here is where you could introduce 5 routes. app.post/user/signup. Something like this. Hopefully this is not jarring and you understand what is happening here. I will do a poll very soon. First endpoint is done. Can you do the second endpoint similarly? Sign in. What is the third endpoint? For the user to get all the current courses. So get/user/courses, or maybe get/courses is a good route for it. Then an endpoint where user gets their own purchased courses. क्या मेरे purchased courses कहाँ हैं? यहाँ पे all the courses. This endpoint we would hit when you go to harkirat.classix.co.in and see all the current courses. But this endpoint you will see, this one will give you all the current courses, and the one that I'm writing next, which is /user/courses, or maybe /user/purchases is a better endpoint, because this page pe I see all my courses. This page pe I see all my purchases. Okay, what all courses have I purchased? This one, this one, this one, and this one. These are the 4 courses that I have purchased. So I need 2 different endpoints. One that gives me all the current courses, unka price kya tha, everything, their title, their image. This gives me all my purchases, what all courses I have purchased. And lastly, this should also be a get. And 5th endpoint was login is done, sign up is done, purchase a course. An endpoint that the user will hit when they want to purchase a course. app.post/user/purchase, let's say. When a user wants to purchase a course, then this is the endpoint that they will hit. A better endpoint probably here is /course/purchase. So either is fine. You can either have this as /user/purchase. Here user wants to purchase a course, or /course/purchase. A user is willing to. Depends on you, right? Depends on the application developer. ये तुम पे है कि how you want your routes to look like. As long as the front end is calling the same routes, you can put whatever over here. But of course, put something meaningful. So the meaningful thing that we've put here is /course/purchase. Now, in the real world, you would expect the user to pay you money. Is that true? When you go over here and go to any course, do you have to buy it? Yes. After you buy it, does the purchase happen? But today, are we doing that? No. No payment acceptance today, because that is a whole different challenge that involves something like Razorpay to do a bunch of things. So today we will just expose an endpoint. User can hit that endpoint, and we will say your course has been purchased. Here, this is a vulnerability. Yes, it is a vulnerability. In the real world, in actuality, you would of course accept payments, but that is a hard problem we're not getting into. So we have just exposed the 5th endpoint. Do we understand these 5 endpoints? Why are they relevant for a user? And a user that comes to the website, a user over here, I am a user. I am not an admin yet. I also have an admin account. If I log out and log in as the admin account, I can create a course over here. I can change the price of a course, all those things. But currently I'm logged in as a user, which is why, these are the endpoints that I will hit. Do we understand this? Let me push this as well. Step 2, add skeleton routes for user. Why do I say skeleton routes? Because kuch ho nahi raha hai abhi. They're just bare minimum skeletons. We haven't written any logic in here. I've pushed the code. Meanwhile, the poll is happening. All right. 90%. 10% have a lot of catching up to do. If you are in the 10%, I will answer your questions next. But for the 90%, are you ready for some challenge and self-learning? I think the best way to learn anything is to learn it yourself. So can you guys figure out what is routing in Express? Why would it make our lives a little bit easier over here? And how can I structure my route? I repeat, for the next 2 minutes, try to Google routing in Express, the Express router, and how will it help you structure your application a little better. And after 2 minutes, I will do the same. Let me look at Q&A until then. This is something I haven't discussed in classes yet. So let's see how many of you are able to figure it out yourself. There are two ways to build a full stack application, where we serve the backend with the front end on the same Express server, where we host the front end somewhere else and backend somewhere else. That is true. What are the advantages and disadvantages of doing these? I mean, Next.js. अब ये कौन सा framework आ गया भाई? I'm assuming you mean Next.js allows you to build both front end and backend in one. Why don't we use Express to serve the static React build? Great question. That is an amazing question. The answer is that you can do that. There is no downside of doing that. But since you know what you're serving in React is static, it doesn't change. Then it is cheaper to host all of that on a CDN, a content delivery network, compared to a VM, a virtual machine. Your backend will be hosted on a virtual machine. If all of your users are asking for HTML pages, how much bandwidth will be consumed on that EC2 machine? That EC2 machine will have to spend a lot of time not computing, but serving. And that is not a job of a VM. A VM should be computing a lot, serving less. If you in the future buy a AWS machine, this AWS machine should simply be returning you JSON data. This is the user information. But if you start returning HTML, CSS, JS files from here, then it can begin to get choked. And if front end is down, back end will go down. If back end is down, front end will go down. Which is why it is a good idea, if you have something like React as your stack, host it separately on a CDN and the backend on a VM. There are downsides to this also, but this is something you should do if you are using the React plus Node.js stack. If you are using Next.js, there are a lot of complications, tons of different things that change when you move to Next.js and have something called server-side rendering. Then you cannot use a CDN. But if you're statically serving files, you're good. All right. Cool. If you have any problems joining Discord, just mail 100xdevs@gmail.com. They'll help you out. Alrighty. Were you able to figure out routing? This is how I would have figured out. Harkirat has given me some code and he said add routing in it, search for routing in Express. I would have searched routing in Express. Let's see. You may not be able to reach the right answer, but let's see. Routing refers to how an application responds to client requests. For an introduction, see basic routing. And this might have been very hard for you to figure out. I don't see an example over here that explains it very well, but let's see. There you go. This is what I was hoping you would get at. Now I'm sure if you are a beginner and so much content is thrown at you, of course you will not be able to figure it out. So don't feel bad if you weren't able to figure it out. I wouldn't have been able to either. I know what I was looking for, so I reached the right place. Let me quickly introduce routing to you, something new that we are learning today. What is the ugly thing of this specific, code that we've written? Okay, everything is in a single file. You have so many things in a single file, which will, wouldn't it be nice if all of these 3 endpoints that start with /user can go to a separate file called user.js. And all of these 3 endpoints that start with, let's say I'll change this endpoint to be /course/bulk or /course/preview. Okay, show me all the courses, preview them to me. I haven't bought them yet. I just want to see them on the landing page. So both of these endpoints that start with /course, all of their logic I put in course.js. And in the future, we will have a third file called admin.js where we will have all the admin routes. Who is an admin? Someone who can create a course on the website. So how can you do that? This is where routing in React comes into the picture. You can do it using some ugly ways also. What would the ugly way be? Harkirat told that all these 3 endpoints need to go to user.js. So ugly ways, you do something like this. You put all 3 here. You export a function from here. User routes create, which takes app as an input. And you call this function in the other place. This works as well. You define a function over here called create user routes. You export this function from here, module.exports equal to create user routes. And then you import this function in the main file. Okay. const this thing equal to require dot slash course or whatever dot slash user. Then you simply call this. You simply यहाँ पे rather than writing all three of those, you simply call this function, and that is how you do structuring. Harkirat, I was able to structure my data better. Is this approach right? It is. It will still work, but there is a better way to do the same thing. This approach, hopefully you understand, कि rather than having all of my three routes over here, rather than having these three routes directly over here, I just called a function over here, which under the hood does the same thing. What is this function doing? If I open this function, under the hood it is calling app.post, app.post, app.get. So as long as I'm passing the right app instance over here, as long as I am passing the right app instance, same ही तो चीज़ हो रही है. It is happening in this file or a separate file. So this is one great way to structure your application. Totally fine. बाकी के दोनों endpoints I will put in the other file. I will take the other two endpoints, remove them from here, go to course.js, function create course routes, take app as an input, and paste all the data over here. This is another ugly way to do routing, but it works. Something like this. Define the function where routing is happening or where the actual logic is happening. In index.js, require the other file from here. And just call this over here. Does this work? It does work. Has our index.js become clean? It has. This was the goal all along, right? Can it not shove all the endpoints over here, all the route handlers over here, structure them a little bit. Course.js file, user.js file. Ideally, you should have a routes folder, a folder called routes, जिसके अंदर you should have course.js file. Move it and change the imports. The import changed over here thanks to Visual Studio Code. User, put it in routes. Move, change the imports. Imports changed over here. This is the ideal way. How well is your application structured? If a new developer comes, they don't get overwhelmed with 20 routes over here. They see that user routes are defined here, course routes are defined here. Do we understand an ugly way to do routing? If we do, then I'll take you through a slightly better way to do routing. But let's see if we understand this. We understand this 91%, down to 89% now. Decentish, I will proceed. A better way to do routing is कि Express ना gives you some very nice constructs. देखो ये ठीक है, there is nothing wrong in this. But what if I could do something like this? कि यार app.use, use ही होता है ना? Router.use, हाँ, app.use /user router and app.use /course router. What if I could do something like this? This is also fine, nothing wrong here. But now the new developer that is joining my team, he can see that all the routes that start with /user are getting handled by this user router. What is this user router? We will get to very soon. But the new developer that joins your team can now, this looks slightly better. The new developer understands Express. He understands that this person has structured the application in a way that all the routes that start with /user get handled by this guy, that start with /course get handled by this guy. This is not clearly telling me that. Looking at this, I cannot tell that. Okay, all the routes that are starting with /user go here. Harkirat, what is the benefit of this? A very big benefit of this is that most backends are written this way. When you usually write a backend, you write something like this: /API/v1/user, /API/v1/course. You have version 1 routes of your backend. Then, in the future, you might have version 2 routes of your backend. So The benefit that this router approach provides you is कि यार initial route यहाँ mention कर दो, mention the initial route over here so that जो user router है, when you go to routes/user.js, here you don't have to mention /user 3 times. This becomes redundant. You can remove /user from here, and from here. वो पहले ही लग गया. The /user, the initial thing, got added over here. Any request that comes to /user/anything will go to the user router. And here I don't have to re-mention /user. वो आ गया. /user/signup will be handled by this guy. /user/signin will be handled by this guy. So on and so forth. Of course, this code needs to change a bit. I shouldn't be exporting a function now. I should be exporting an express router. So this is the thing that I was saying. Can you figure out how to create routers? Can you figure out how to create routing in Express? The thing that was expected was कि जो Express library है, until now we have done const express equal to require express. The Express library provides you something called a router. Const router equal to express.router. You can write it like this. Or you can either write the code like this, or you can write it like this. Const router equal to require express. Both these two things, these two lines of code and this line of code, both do the same thing. यहाँ पे you are first getting an express object. This object has a key called router that you get over here. यहाँ पे you simply say const router equal to express. You destructure router directly over here. Both of the syntax are fine. First you import this router variable. Then you say okay, const, let's say user router equal to router. This router variable is not a class but a function. I know it looks a little weird. Okay, Harkirat, it starts with a capital letter. It does. But still it is a function only. When I hovered over this and went over here, it was a function. So I called the function. And rather than doing app.post, I don't have access to app anymore. We will not be passing app from here to here anymore. I will simply do user router, this thing, .post/signup, .post/signin, .get/purchases. These are the three endpoints that I will create now. And what will I export from this file? The thing that I will export from this file would be this user router. So I've changed a lot of things here. We are not exporting a function anymore. What are we exporting? We are first creating an instance of this router. It isn't a class. So this isn't an instance of a router class. This is just a function. I call this function. It returns a router to me. What is a router? As the name suggests, जो request आ रही है, it will route it to the right place. If a request comes in index.js on /user/anything, it gets routed to this user router. So what is this user router? It is a place that will handle incoming requests. And specifically the way we are writing it, any request that is coming to /user/anything will be handled by this router. This router I have defined over here. I am exporting at the end of the file and I'm going to import over here. Const user router equal to require ./user. And then this is how I've, used the user router. Let me push this code and can you try to do the other one? Can you try to finish the course router? If you weren't able to follow along with me, which I'm sure you weren't because I went a little fast. Let me push this code. Step 3. Added routers. I have pushed this code, so you can fresh clone the repository, or if you understand git pull by now, you can pull my changes on your side as well. Given this specific ./route/user is not exporting this function anymore. No. It is exporting a router. This is how we use the router. app.use/user. User router, what is the benefit of this? Benefit is कि कोई भी request जो slash user पे आ रही है ना will go over here. Bigger benefit is all the prefixes can be mentioned over here. Slash API slash v1 slash user. All requests that are coming to slash API slash v1 slash course, please go over here. What is the benefit? Whenever you want to change to v2, you simply change it in two places. You don't have to go into individual routes and यहाँ पे भी change slash API slash v2. No, all the structuring, all the prefixing of your backend routes happens over here. Okay, all my v1 routes currently are handled by these guys. In the future, you might introduce v2 routes. Let's say you have a very fancy team that you've hired. They are writing some very nice code. So this will keep running on production. You will also introduce the v2 routes, which will be handled by, let's say, user v2 router and course v2 router. And the new team that has joined, that is working on v2 of your application, they will keep writing the code over here. Until then, this will keep running in production. So, this is the benefit of routing. Okay, all your routes are very clearly mentioned at the top level file rather than going down with this other approach of creating functions. So can we build it for the other one? Can we build the course router as well? Let me comment the first one. Let me move this as well. Go to the course.js file. And what are we supposed to do over here? Okay, no longer the function is needed. I am not going to export a function. I am going to create a router. Const router equal to require router. Const course router equal to router. And what do I have to do? Course router dot post anytime a post request comes. Rest.json dot get anytime a get request comes. Rest.json abhi ke liye basic skeleton code. And what am I exporting? The course router. What am I not exporting? The function that we had. This is how I would change the course.js file. What would I do next? I would import this course router in index.js. I'll wait for like 10-15 seconds if anyone was following along. As you saw, what did I do? Imported the router at the top, created a fresh router, called router.post, router.get, exported the router over here, went back to index.js. What did I do over here? Rather than importing a function, I imported the course router. And I said, anytime a request comes to slash API slash v1 slash course, please get handled by the course router. Hopefully that works. Let's see. Let me run node index.js. And immediately I see an error. It says cannot find module router. Const router equal to require express. That's my bad. I had written const router equal to require router here. It should be express. Try that one more time. And seems like my backend server is running. How can I confirm? Let me send a get request to slash API slash v1 slash course. And if I go to the course router slash, I should remove these prefixes from here now. Hopefully that is clear why I removed them, because that prefix is already added in index.js. Jo prefix yahan pe aa gaya, if slash API slash v1 slash course is over here, I don't have to rewrite that prefix in here. I don't have to rewrite slash API slash v1 slash course slash purchase. No, any request that is coming to slash API slash v1 slash course slash purchase would be handled by this guy only. That is how routing works. Okay, jo bhi request yahan aa rahi hai, whatever request is coming here, please get handled here. And whatever it has after that, you need to mention here. After that, we have slash sign up slash sign in. Let me try it one more time. Node index.js. Let me send a request to, open the code on the left, open the browser on the right, localhost colon 3000 slash, what were the route here? API v1 course. Okay, that is the initial route. And what was the route after that? Preview. So slash preview over here. And does it say sign up endpoint? It does. Is that what was mentioned over here? Yes. This should ideally say, whatever. course preview endpoint, but you get the idea. Routing, this is how it works in Express. Let me push all of my code so you can try it locally as well. In case you weren't able to follow along, I will recap also everything I've done before we proceed. Try to write it yourself. We only have 3 files right now. We haven't yet complicated things at all. If anything, we have structured things better. We could have done everything in the same file. This is a very common dilemma that happens in programming. The thing that is happening, jo aata hai wohi kar lete hain na yaar. I know how to put 5 things here. Let me put 5 routes here. But if you take a pause, take a step back, learn something new, then, how easy is our life now? Our index.js is so clean. Nothing ugly over here. If a new developer joins our company, they can clearly see that these are all the initial routes. They are getting handled by the user router. What is happening inside the user router? Okay, a new router is being created where we have 3 endpoints that this user has created. So any request that comes to /API/v1/user/purchases will get handled over here. Cool. Same for the courses endpoint. In the future, you might have, not in the future, in like 20 minutes, we will introduce a third router here, the admin router. Isn't this cleaner? Kya theek hai, admin ka sara code we will write in a separate file. Rather than shoving everything in a single file, isn't this much cleaner? Having, very well structured endpoints like this. Can we do a poll? Do we understand what is supposed to happen, what we're supposed to do? We're also done with point number 3 over here. And point number 4 is doing the same thing for the admin. Okay, 91% is good. Great, let's proceed a little bit more. Add routes for the admins. Given this starting point, how difficult is it to add the skeletons for the admin endpoint? Sabse pehle, introduce a new route handler here, /admin. Then create routes /admin.js. What did I do? Any request that comes to /admin needs to get handled by this admin router. What will I do over here? Const router equal to require express. Const admin router equal to router. And then we will, have the same endpoints. What are the endpoints that are needed? The same as the user, right? A sign up endpoint, a sign in endpoint, a few more actually. So at least these 2 I will copy from here because I know admin will also have to sign up and sign in. And then one endpoint to maybe create a course, an endpoint that the admin can call to create a course. Now here, you can do multiple things. You can either be like, yaar, main to yahan dalunga. I will put the admin course creation logic here. Or you can be like, I will put it here. I would personally put it here so that I can have a lot of restrictions on this file. On this file, I can be like here, admin router.use admin middleware. What I can do is, this file is protected by this admin middleware. This admin middleware will make sure that the user is logged in. Of course, not for the sign up and the sign in endpoint, but any endpoint that comes afterwards. So that is the benefit of, structuring your application separately. All endpoints that are restricted to an admin, I am putting in this specific file. This is how the admin can create a course. The admin should also be allowed to change the course. What if they want to change the name of the course or the price of the course or the image of the course? And then post, put, and maybe get. The admin should also be able to get all of their courses, let's say in bulk, which basically means give me all the courses that I have created. Cool. This is a brief of, the endpoints that we need right now. Might change in the future, I don't know. But I think for now, these much endpoints are good enough. What are you supposed to do next? Module.exports equal to admin router. Export it from here. What do you do then? Import it in index.js. And then just post it over here. Is that good enough? Was that easy? Creating the skeleton was easy, right? That always is. Of course, we have to now write the real logic. That will be a little hard. So let me quickly commit this. Hopefully this was straightforward and nothing. Great. Let's move on to the next one, guys. What is the next thing after this? Yeah, we should skip this step for later. Let's do the difficult thing first. Let's add the database logic. Can you design the schema for this? Ignore everything else. Really, the big challenge next is designing the schema. What would the database look like? This is actually the first thing you should do. Before you write any code, you should design the schema of your application. I don't have an answer either. It really depends on how many features we need. If we need basic set of features, it will be a very easy schema. If we need extremely complex features, it will be slightly harder schema. So let's try to start to define the schema for users, jahan pe we will store user information, admins, where we will store admins information, course, where we will store all the courses that have been created, purchases, where we will store all the purchases that users have made. So admin will put entries in the courses table. Users will put entries in the purchases table as they buy the course. So let's design the schema, then we will go from there. I think after, if you're able to design the schema, everything else is just implementation. Oh, come on. There we go. I have pushed the code to GitHub. Can we start to design the schema? What is the application? What are we building? A course selling application. User and admin endpoints should be straightforward. We have a users table, or in MongoDB it is called a collection. So a users collection. What all will we store over here? We will store the user's ID. By default, MongoDB already stores it, if you remember from last week. An ID, which is of what type? Is it a string? No, it is a object ID. In MongoDB, all IDs that are provided by default, even when you create one, it should be of type object ID. What is an object ID? It is almost like a string. It is like a UUID, if you have heard of a UUID or a GUID. It's a unique type of a string which has, let's say 10 characters, has some specific characters you can put in there, is highly randomized. So if you automatically create an object ID, the probability, the thing that has come will come again is very low. What is an object ID? It is a very long string, and if you generate a default object ID, or if you've heard of what a GUID is, if I go to GUID generator online, you will see when you generate a random GUID, it is so long and so random. So it is very hard if you generate another one, it will be the same as the old one. So similarly, object IDs are highly randomized. So there's a very low probability of two random object IDs being the same. That is the first thing that will be stored here. What else? Maybe email. This will be a string only. What else? Password. This will be a string only. What else? First name, let's say. Last name, that is good enough. We don't need more information from the user. Ideally, you need the address, because in a course selling website, when you're selling a course, you need to know which state the user is in. GST, which things depend on it. But let's say we ignore addresses for now. What would the admins table look like? Very similar, right? We can pretty much copy the schema over here. I'm calling it an admin. I should ideally be calling it, a course creator or something like that. Anyone who can come and create a course. We are going to call them admin for now, but they aren't really admins. They are people who can create a course on the website. What is the third database that we will have? What will the schema look like for the third collection? It will be the course collection. Can you guess what the schema would look like? As I said, I did not prepare for this, so I am also thinking out loud. No right or wrong answer, but what all do you need in a course? You definitely need the title of the course. Let's say full stack course. You need the description. In this course, Harkirat is going to teach you live, yada yada. The price, which is a number. And what else? Image URL. So this is something someone asked. Harkirat, would you store the image as such in the database? You can. You can actually convert images into base64. It will become a very long string. Shove it in the database. You shouldn't though. you should store the image URL. What is an image URL? For example, if this is an image for my course, let's say I want to teach cats something, then this is the bad example. Copy image address, bad example again. This is the data converted in base 64. So if you want, if you look at this string, it is not a URL, it is base 64 encoded image. So you can shove it like this in the database. You shouldn't though. You should find a publicly available URL. Hopefully this one is, yeah, something like this, images.pexels.com/photos/kittycat.jpg. Something like this you should store in the database. You should not store the raw image data in the database. Your database will just become overwhelmed, or just not bad idea to do that. All right, for like 100 reasons. Cool. Course is done. What is the last one? Purchases. Am I missing something in courses, by the way? One very important thing I'm missing. It is the creator ID. Who is the creator of this specific course, which will be of type object ID. The creator of a course would be someone from this admins table. So that is why the creator ID over here points to this admin table, or is an object ID, which will represent a row in this admins table. And lastly, purchases should be straightforward. A default ID for this and a course ID. What course was bought? Let's say this will also be an object ID. And what user bought it? That will also be an object ID. So this will be what's called a mapping table. What does a mapping table mean? It means that it doesn't store course ka full information here. It doesn't store user ka full information here. This points to the course table. And this points to user ID will point to what? The users table. Okay, this user bought this course. Is the schema enough? It sort of is. There are more things you should add. Specifically, one thing we have missed is the course content. Course के अंदर जो videos हैं. So ideally there should be another table here called course content. I'm not going to add it to keep things simple, but there should be a table called course content. What would this course content table have? It will have that this specific course has first video 1, then video 2, then PDF 3, then Notion doc 4, all of these things. So we're not complicating the schema for now, keeping it simple. But ideally there should be some course content, right? When you buy a course, you need to see some data in there. So that should be the next thing. Do we understand this much? Can we do a poll? Is the schema clear? Schema is clear. So can we write the schema? Can we use Mongoose to create the schema like we have until now? Do you want me to write it, or guys should write it yourself, right? That's how you learn, or whatever, you'll become more comfortable. Sounds so like a teacher. So create a db.js file, and here can you describe the schemas? They're already over here on the screen. These are the schemas that we have to create. I'm sure you guys can barely see them. So let me just try to structure this a little bit better. Hopefully that is visible. This is the schema that we have to design. Can you write the Mongoose file for this? We did it last week. So if you remember, we created schemas, we created models. Can you create the schemas and models? Can you write that much code? This is the standard cycle of any full stack app. You would write the route handlers, or at least just define it in a doc, maybe create skeletons for it, define the schema, create the schema for it, and then it's just connecting everything together, right? Maybe one difficult thing that's left is writing the middlewares. But other than that, that is all the backend of a simple CRUD application is. This is what, is a simple CRUD application. So let's finish this quickly. I'll give you guys 3 minutes. And then I will, write it myself as well. I'm looking at Q&A until then. How can I add a build script if my Node.js server doesn't have a build script. One, you don't need a build script here. It is JavaScript code. JavaScript doesn't have a build script step. If you're writing React code, then you have to build it to HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. If you're writing TypeScript code, you have to build it to JavaScript. If you're writing C++ code, you build it to a binary. JavaScript runs like this, right? So there is usually no build step in a JavaScript file. But if you want, in package.json, you can introduce a build step in the script section. But what will this build step do? I mean, sometimes you take all the files and put all the JavaScript code in a single file. That is one thing you can do. There is this project called ESBuild that will let you do it. Browserify or Uglify. There are like various things that you can do in the build step of a JavaScript project to put all of your file into all of your code into a single file, create a single, not binary but still a JavaScript file, but very long JavaScript file. But rarely have I seen it being done in JavaScript projects. Please add the skeletons of the schema. Okay, that's actually a good point. Const schema equal to require mongoose. And const user schema equal to schema, and figure out the rest yourself. So user schema and admin schema and course schema and purchase schema. So this is the skeleton, and then at the end we will create models from it. So const user model equal to mongoose.model give it whatever user comma user schema. I'm sure I'm missing something in the syntax. I don't write mongoose code or MongoDB code usually, but I think it's somewhere along this lines. Could be right as well, I don't know. Admin schema, course schema, and purchase schema. There you go. This is the skeleton. The only thing that's left is filling in the actual data. Answering more questions. Great question. Someone asked, why are we creating two separate databases or collections for admins and users? Why not do it in the same place and have an entry called, a field over here called type or role, a field over here called role, which is either user or admin, something like this. This is also fairly common. This is just one route I choose always because I'm a little finicky. There are some downsides in this approach, which is, you will have multiple entries with the same email, same what if there is a user that wants to be a user also, admin also? I guess that problem is in the other case as well. There is no downside in this approach. Your approach is also, I think the challenges that are in this approach will come in the other approach as well, which is you have separate tables. It's just, so one thing that, bothers me a lot is in a users table, there are two entries with the same email, which will happen if you have, a user who's a user also and an admin also. So just to avoid that, I always try to keep them separate. There are 10 different reasons I can give you to do that as well, but I'm sure there are downsides in this approach as well. Okay, you don't have two emails in the same database, you have them in two different collections. So yeah, both approaches are fine. In fact, this approach gives you more flexibility. Okay, there could be a user role, admin role, super admin role, things like these. What if there's a super admin who can edit all courses? Those we'll have to create a third table. So I get it. You're not wrong, and that this approach is also pretty good. Please explain include and select in Mongoose. We might reach them today when we reach references. If not today, tomorrow, we'll understand what include and select let you do. Very similar to selects in SQLs. What is the fourth schema you wrote? Purchase schema. This is a user that will purchase some courses. When I purchase course number 1, that entry will be made over here. Okay, Harkirat has purchased a specific course. So this is the purchase schema. need a little knowledge about API. What, how, why? Oh, you have to go back to Express ka video. Why are we not using Node-1? No reason. We can use Node-1. Node-1 is something that will keep watching your code, and you don't have to restart your code. If you want to use it, read about it, use it. Instead of making two separate collections, okay, answer that. How can we delete the to-do from database at its object ID is too much long to know for the user? Great question. Someone asked, okay, the object IDs are so big. How will the user delete a to-do? The thing is, when the user will be on a to-do, when the user will be on your website, okay, todoapp.com /to-dos/ that very long string, the user is already on this page. This ID will somewhere be on the front end. So user will just click on the delete button, but you have access to that ID. So user, when you click on it, when I go to linkedin.com and let's say I've done a post in the past. Let's say this is a post right here and I want to delete it. Let's say this was my post. So I clicked on these three icons, then I clicked on delete. So ID of this could be very random, very long, whatever, but it is somewhere in this JavaScript. That ID, just like Anmol Agarwal name is here, sub name is here, 5 hours ago is here, somewhere ID is also there. It is not visible on the screen, but it's somewhere in the JavaScript. So when I click on delete, when I click on delete, that ID sort of goes to the backend. Cool. Okay, what is API v1 in this thing? It is just, so someone answered yours. Thanks, Someshwar. And if you're free, Someshwar, do you want to do this full time? Answer questions, you're doing pretty well. I'm looking for someone who can handle these questions. So yes, as /API/v1, if yes, just message on 100x Devs Twitter. /API/v1 is just a convention. If there is an application as big as LinkedIn, तो पहले they will create a version 1 of their application. Version 1 में these are our routes. And they would want कि version 1 वही रहे. Version 1 still stays, वो भी चल रहा है. Meanwhile, we will start working on version 2 of our application, जहाँ पे हम कुछ बहुत तगड़ा कर रहे हैं. We have better schemas, we have more optimal backend, whatever. So they will keep working on this while the original routes are intact. They are not touching any of this. They are not changing existing routes. They are creating a V2 of their routes. Whenever they are ready, front end pay, I repeat, on the front end of, let's say, LinkedIn or whatever, they will start to hit the V2 endpoint. And then let's say they start working on the V3 endpoint. So that is, just one way to structure backends, because backends change very quickly. And it is one reason or one thing for your, existing version of routes to have a bug that you fix or features that you add. But it is a totally different thing for you to keep improving your backends completely in a version 2, in a version 3. So this just lets you structure that better. V1 means version 1, V2 means version 2. All right. Hopefully you guys were able to do it. Let me quickly finish it as well. Let's try to finish the whole application today. I think we will be able to do it. What should the ID be over here? Or, ID that will come by default. What were the other things? I'm just going to blindly copy the things that we wrote over here. So email, which is string, and password, which is string, and if we want, we can add constraints here as well. Okay, email is type string and unique true. Syntax could be wrong. Let me know if that's the case. But I think this will let you enforce some schema and make sure 2 entries with the same email don't reach the MongoDB database. Password, string, first name, string, last name, string, and we are not going with the role approach. This is good enough. And can we do the same thing in admin schema? Exactly the same thing in admin schema. Course schema, title, string, description, string, price, number, image, URL, string, creator ID, object ID, which comes from Mongoose only, I think. mongoose dot types dot object id. I think that's the right one. Yeah, I could be wrong, but I think this is right. Object ID comes from mongoose.types.object ID. Schema comes from mongoose.schema. I could be wrong. We will see if there is a bug. We'll fix it, but I think this is right. All right. And lastly, purchase is schema is going to be this user, which is again an object ID, bought this course, which is again an object ID. This course ID refers to this course schema. This user ID refers to this user schema. Now, one feature of Mongo we are not using right now is references. If you remember last week, that was the last slide. We still haven't covered that, so I am not introducing that here. If you already know it, if you want to Google a bit, you can also add references over here. That will help you a little bit down the line when we come to it. When we come to it, we can also understand references. Then either way is fine. But this is not the best schema. It is very close. But this user ID and this course ID, you can add something called references. This user ID refers to the user schema. This course ID refers to the course schema. That will make your life a little bit easier. But let's not go there, Abhi. Hopefully the schema is right. And admin schema is what needs to come here. Course schema is what needs to come here. Purchase schema is what needs to come here. Decent. Last thing is export the user model and admin model and course model and purchases model. Export the 4 models from here. And that's how you design your schema. This is a very basic schema, as I said. A users table, admins table, courses table, and purchases table. Creating the corresponding models for it, exporting it from here. This is a very basic schema. As your application gets more complex, this will change as time goes by. Cool. Is this right though? I don't know. This comes from memory. This could be wrong. So let's quickly try to run it and see. What is the one thing I have not done yet? Mongoose.connect. Whenever you want to create a connection to a MongoDB database, you have to call mongoose.connect. You have to pass in a MongoDB URL over here. Now, in README, you will find something. Use .env to store the connection database string. Try to figure out what this is, why this is good. We will also discuss it maybe tomorrow or even today if we get the time. But this is a better way to do what I'm doing next. What am I doing next? Yahan pe, I'm calling mongoose.connect and pasting my MongoDB URL. Harkirat, how can I start MongoDB? There are various ways. You can start it locally if you want. We're not going there. We got a cloud MongoDB URL if you remember in the last class. So I'm just going to use that cloud MongoDB URL of me that I have. Eventually when we reach Docker, we'll also understand a very easy way to start MongoDB locally. What is happening here in mongoose.connect? I have to give the connection URL over here. So let me go to Google Chrome. Let me go to mongodb.com and get myself a free MongoDB URL or whatever, MongoDB cluster from where I'm going to, put data in here. So sign in. If you want, you can do the same. You can quickly get yourself a free MongoDB, cluster you probably already have from last week. As you can see, this is my cluster. It already has 530 kilobytes of data in it. How do I connect to it? Click on connect. Select how do you connect to it. There are various ways. Compass, if you remember last week, we understood is a GUI like this. What is MongoDB Compass? The thing that is mentioned over here. It is a GUI, a graphical user interface. When I open MongoDB Compass locally, let's wait for it to open. Taking a long time. There we go. This just lets you connect to your database, see the data inside it. It's like a MySQL GUI or Prisma Studio or PG admin for Postgres. Every application or every database has some GUI to visualize your data. So I'm just going to connect it using Compass. So I click on Compass. What does it say? it says कि this is how you can connect to it. So the way to connect to it is by copying over this cluster URL of mine, pasting it over here. Again, we discussed all of this last week, and putting in a password over here. Now, I don't remember my password as always. I always forget my MongoDB passwords. So I'm just going to select a different cluster from last week. I can also reset my password from here if I want. I can go to database access and reset password for the 100x steps user. The URL is clearly saying this is the 100x steps user. Uska password kya hai? Give me the password for it, which I don't remember. So I'm just going to pick a database from last week. I think this is right. Let me just copy this connection string as well, so I have it handy. Let me try to connect to it. And when I connect to this database, let's see what happens. It might not be alive. MongoDB like deletes or purges databases from time to time, the free ones. And since we are using a free one, there's a high probability this one is not alive anymore. Let's see. Yeah, it's taking a long time. Let's try another one. Oh, I already have one 100x steps wala. So let's see. Oh, I already had that 100x steps URL. This is the password for it, which is something you shouldn't share with the world like I am right now. And this is my database. I can visualize it on the left. As you can see, there are a bunch of to-do applications that people created last week. Everyone was using my database, not everyone, like let's say 10 people were. So that is why you see a different bunch of collections that people created, or a bunch of databases that people created last week. Here I want to introduce my new application, my Coursera application, where I will put some data. So I can explicitly put a database over here, or if I go back to my MongoDB application and write mongoose.connect this connection URL, it will automatically create that database for me, whatever name I write at the end of it. If I write /Coursera-app, then /Coursera, then this /Coursera-app database will be created automatically. There will be a database over here that will automatically get generated. I can also create it manually if I want. Either is fine. Let's see if it works. Let's see if when I connect here, does it create a Coursera-app database in the MongoDB database? Can you tell if this will work if I run it right now? What is the one thing that is missing? I have declared this db.js file. I have not imported it anywhere. ये जो file है db.js, it is like any other random a.txt file where there is some data. I defined this file, but I never imported this file in index.js. I never imported this file in route/admin.js. So this file will never run. This line of code will never run, which is why even if I run the application right now, mongoose.connect will never get called. The db.js file is not yet imported anywhere. So let me quickly import it in a few places. Otherwise, this will not work. The db.js file will never get called only. This line of code will never run. So whatever schemas I'm exporting from here, user model, admin model, let me import them. In admin.js, what would I need? I would at least need this admin model where I will store all the user information or admin information. So can I write const admin model equal to require /db? That is good enough. Now that I have one file imported, and this file is imported in index.js. So, eventually, at least when I run this file gets imported, and this file imports the admin model. So, this file gets imported. This mongoose.connect line runs. I can also put a log over here, console.log connected to Mongo. This is slightly incorrect. This is an asynchronous call mongoose.connect. I should actually be awaiting it. I am assuming that the connection to the database happened. We should fix this. This is not exactly correct, the thing that I've done right now. All right, let's run node index.js. And already we have a bunch of bugs. What does it say? Second argument to model should be a pojo or a string. A pojo. Takes me back to Java days. What should be the second argument be? Of course, they use an any. I think it's an object or something like this. Okay, schema. Let's see. Model in Mongoose. Schema. No, that looks right. Mongoose.model, name of the model and the schema. Oh, it needs to be new Mongoose schema. That's my bad. Schema is a class, is it? Yeah, it is a class, and hence we need to initialize an object of that class. That's my bad. Let's try it now. What have I changed? The only thing I've changed is created an object of the schema class rather than just calling schema. If I run node index.js, still we see an error. Let's see who has the answer already in Q&A. I'm sure some of you do, and I'm sure it's super frustrating if you know the answer and I don't, and you paste it. I don't know. Schema.what? Schema.object ID. Lowercase m. In mongoose.model m is. Oh, is that it? Okay, that might be it. Thank you, folks. I appreciate it. Yeah, that was it. Thank you. The log also came that said connected to. So this line of code actually ran. Let's see, did my MongoDB database update? If I refresh the MongoDB database, can you see Coursera app over here? Coursera app was introduced. Admins courses purchases users. So let me push the code in. I would urge you guys to try it out locally as well. Hopefully some of you coded it yourself. But let me add a next step to our code for today. Git add dot commit. This is going to be step 6. Added the schema. What are the things that we should fix here? There are 2 callouts I'm going to do that are bad and we should fix. Callout number 1. If mongoose.connect fails or takes, let's say, 20 seconds, then our application will not have a database connection yet be running. We have an index.js file that will start to listen on port 3000, but our database might not be ready. I am not awaiting this mongoose.connect call. I should wait for this first. Ideally, I should do something like this. I'm giving away the answer here, but it would have been nice for you to figure it out yourself, which is you require mongoose at the top. Before you do app.listen, you first await on mongoose.connect. Only if this happens should you start to listen on port 3000. Mongoose.connect will fail. And if it fails, your backend shouldn't start. What will your backend do after starting if it is not connected to the database? So create a main function at the top of your file, which should be an async function. Call that main function. This will ensure कि पहले तो mongoose.connect succeeds. We actually connect to it. And if there is an error over here, your application will crash. Let's try that out. If I run node index.js, let me put a log here. Console.log listening on port 3000. If I run this, wait for it. Took some time to connect to the MongoDB database, and then finally listening on port 3000. But if I connect to another URL, a random password, which should fail. This is not the right password anymore. So this should fail. When I run node index.js, what happens? It fails. As you can see, backend doesn't even start. This is good. If you are not able to connect to the database, you should not be starting to listen your backend. Your backend should tell, "Kya I am down, bhai, something is wrong." Your developer should come fix it, and then you should proceed. If you don't await on this, or if you put it in the other place, then your backend will keep on running. Your users will keep on sending you requests. Those requests will not reach the database. Hopefully this is easy. The other call out I did was storing the string over here is bad. So use something called .env to put your environment variables in a separate file. That you should figure out yourself. Okay? What is the next step? Did I push it? Step 7. Only start if database is up. Hopefully that is also simple to understand. This is done. The next step is creating the middlewares. Is that easy enough, guys? Have we done this many times now? Okay, we will have a user's middleware and admin middleware, and their goal is to extract the token from the cookie or a header and then forward the request or stop the request. We've done this 2-3 times. So can you quickly create 2 middleware files? Should take less than 2 minutes. After this is done, then though it's just writing the actual logic for the website. So 2 more minutes. Can you try to write the middlewares? Let's also do a poll. Does everyone understand everything until this point? And let me also look at Q&A. %85%. It dropped a bit. So I'm looking at Q&A for the 16%. Push the code fast to keep up. Oh, sorry about that. Someone created an advanced course selling website already. Let's see. Sir, one question. How MongoDB no object ID is referring to course ID or purchase ID, etc.? It doesn't. Right now it doesn't. If I put an entry over here, MongoDB doesn't know. I have not yet used references. So right now MongoDB does not know कि object ID is referring to the things over there. Code not push. Sorry about that. Hopefully it is now. Yeah, I think it should be now. Let me know if that's not the case. So for you, whoever is hosting on Render, why do you have a backend in your application if you're just hosting a resume for recruiters? Just have a pure front-end application, right? And host it on Vercel. Can't redeclare blocked scoped variables. Where did I do that? Env as an environment, dev environment production. No, that is something else. Registering can be stored in based in. No. That is something else. What you're talking about is something else. What I am talking about is a environment file. Very common concept. Any code base that you go to, will always have a top level .env.example file. If you go to this code base, you will find a .env.example, .env.test file. So this file is usually where you store all of your secrets. For example, database URL over here is stored like this. So similarly, this database URL should not be stored over here. It should be stored in a .env file. That is what I was talking about. Recap. All right, time to recap everything. I'm sure some people are confused by this as well. Why did I add a main function? I'll explain. Let's look at the steps for today. Initialize a new Node.js project. Hopefully that was simple. npm init. Add a few dependencies. Hopefully that was simple. Create index.js. Creating an empty file is always simple. When we were creating the routes for admins, for users, and for courses, what did we do? We did some very basic routing. We changed index.js. I am not going to put all of my routes over here. If I have 10 routes, I am not putting them all over here. I'm going to structure them in various files. So user routes are present over here. Course routes are present over here. Admin routes are present over here. That is how I have structured my application. Given this structure of the application, I was able to write my user routes over here. Anytime the user wants to sign up, this route handler will get called. Sign in, purchases. Course router. Anytime a user wants to see all their purchases, or if they want to create a new purchase, if they want to buy a course, they will hit this endpoint. If they want to preview a course, if they want to see what all courses exist right now. Preview ka matlab hai you just see all of the currently available courses that you have not bought, let's say. That will be handled by this endpoint. And then there is an admin router where admins or creators of the course can sign up, sign in, create a new course, update an existing course, and get all the existing courses they have created by hitting this /bulk endpoint. There is actually a small bug here. Okay, this should not be admin router.post/course. It should be admin router.post/ because we have already written the prefix in index.js. Index.js में already mentioned है कि anytime a request comes to /API/v1/course, it should be handled by this guy. तो यहाँ पे I don't have to rewrite course. फिर 2 बार कोर्स हो जाएगा. Then the expected output endpoint would be /API/v1/course/course. If I put /course over here, then prefix maybe there is a course. यहाँ पे भी there is a course, which is why I just put / over here. Okay, I don't want anything extra. Anytime a request comes to /API/v1/course, this guy will handle it. Put request comes to the same endpoint, this guy will handle it. A request comes to /API/v1/course/bulk, this guy will handle it. Straightforward, hopefully. Then the last thing I did was add the database